Since I decided to run as an independent candidate for the presidency, one of the issues people seem most confused about is my position on vaccines. So today I'm going to set the record straight by explaining my exact posture point by point. If you're willing to take a few minutes, I think you might be surprised to find out how much we actually agree. So let's begin with my first point, which is probably the most controversial. Vaccines have side effects, just like every other drug. This shouldn't be controversial, but it is. When I'm asked about this on television, it usually sounds something like this.
You said that. No vaccine is safe and effective.
You said, quote, there's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. Do you still believe that?
That statement comes from an interview where I was interrupted and I didn't get to complete my thought.
Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Those are big words.
What I was actually saying in that interview, and what I've said for 20 years, is that there is no such thing as a vaccine that is safe and effective for everyone. Let me explain. Just like every drug on the market, vaccines have side effects that severely injure and kill some people every year. If that's in contrast to what you've been told, then your doctor probably never showed you the warning sheet that comes with every vaccine on the market. This is the insert that comes in the box with the hepatitis B vaccine, which is injected into most babies within 24 hours of birth. Let me read you just a few of the serious side effects in this document. Under the heading of nervous system disorders, it says Guillain-Barré syndrome, multiple sclerosis, exacerbation of multiple sclerosis, myelitis, including transverse myelitis, seizure, febrile seizure, peripheral neuropathy, including Bell's palsy, radiculopathy, herpes, migraine, muscle weakness, hyposthesia, and encephalitis, swelling of the brain, even Johnson's syndrome, alopecia, and eczema. The list of side effects goes on and on, but you got the idea. For over a decade, I've been attacked and labeled an anti-vaxxer and a conspiracy theorist for simply drawing attention to the serious side effects listed on every vaccine insert and for advocating for the children who are suffering from these side effects. Our health departments believe we shouldn't talk about vaccine injuries because they are rare, but I don't agree with that. We can't fix a problem by ignoring it. Vaccine-injured children deserve just as much attention as a child with a rare disease like cancer. Luckily, the thinking on this is starting to change. Here's a recent New York Times article about people who've been injured by the COVID vaccine. Thousands believe that COVID vaccines harm them. Is anyone listening? All vaccines have at least occasional side effects, but people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. The article explains that all vaccines do have occasional side effects. It calls for an investigation of the injured so that we can come up with solutions. Even one of the heads of the COVID task force, Dr. Deborah Birx, is joining this call for action.
Well, that's why we need all the people to come forward that have had reactions, because I'm not sure all of them have been reported.
There's been so much credibility lost in the public science groups, NIH, FDA, CDC, because I think there was a lack of really just transparency. One of the things I used to tell my colleagues, don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer. And all too often, people would make up the answer. And as you know, those of us that tried to suggest there may be significant side effects from vaccines, we kind of like with the rest of your show that you had early on, we kind of got canceled because no one wanted to talk about the potential that there was a problem from the vaccines because they were afraid that that would cause people not to want to get vaccinated.
For years, we've been told that vaccines have been studied extensively, but Dr. Birx knows this is not true. Should she be called an anti-vaxxer for finally telling us the truth? Back in 2005, Dr. Bernadine Healy, the former head of NIH, the National Institute for Health, made this shocking admission to CBS News.
This is the time when we do have the opportunity to understand whether or not there are susceptible children, perhaps genetically, perhaps they have a metabolic issue, mitochondrial disorder, immunological issue, that makes them more susceptible to vaccines, plural, or to one particular vaccine, or to a component of vaccine, like mercury. Why is this important? A susceptible group does not mean that vaccines aren't good. What a susceptible group will tell us is that maybe there is a group of individuals or a group of children that shouldn't have a particular vaccine or shouldn't have vaccine on the same schedule. It is the job of the public health community and of physicians to be out there and to say, yes, we can make it safer because we are able to say this is a subset. We're going to deliver it in a way that we think is safer.
Do you feel the government was too quick to dismiss out of hand that there was this possibility of a link between vaccines and autism?
I think the government or certain public health officials in the government have been too quick to dismiss the concerns of these families without studying the population that got sick. I haven't seen major studies that focus on 300 kids who got autistic symptoms within a period of a few weeks of the vaccine. The reason why they didn't want to look for those susceptibility groups was because they're afraid that if they found them, however big or small they were, that would scare the public away. The fact that there is concern that you don't want to know that susceptible group is a real disappointment to me. If you know that susceptible group, you can save those children.
I'm going to usher in a new era in medicine. I'm going to make sure that our regulatory agencies stop putting the interests of the pharmaceutical industry above the interests of the American people. I'm going to make sure that you are told the truth about every product, and that includes all the benefits and all the side effects that they know about. And I'm going to fund our regulatory agencies to fix the problem instead of ignoring them. And I'm going to stop them from gaslighting and silencing the scientists, the physicians, and the individuals who want to talk about vaccine injuries. That leads me to my next point. Vaccine makers should be legally responsible for their products, and surprisingly, they're not. Let me explain. In 1986, vaccine manufacturers were losing so much money from lawsuits for death and injury caused by their vaccines that they couldn't make a profit. So they asked our government to protect them from liability, and that's what Congress did. It passed the so-called 1986 Vaccine Injury Compensation Act. And as a result of that bill, vaccines are the only consumer product that are completely shielded from liability. That means and no matter how reckless the company behaves, no matter how negligent they are, no matter how grievous your injury, you can't sue them. So let me ask you this. If a company can't be sued when their product injures or kills somebody, what incentive do they have to fix it? As an attorney, I can assure you that once a company knows that they can be sued when their product is defective, they work much harder to fix the issue themselves. By repealing the 1986 Act, we can replace regulation with responsibility and accountability. And my last point is this: freedom means having the right to choose. When President Biden passed the mandate during the pandemic to take away people's jobs if they did not submit to the COVID vaccine, he violated one of the central principles of freedom.
4 million more people got their first shot in August than they did in July. But we need to do more. This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
If a person does not have the final decision of their own bodies, then they are owned by whoever does. This was the central discussion during the trials of the doctors who committed war crimes during World War II that resulted in the passage of the Nuremberg Code. The very first rule of that code is called informed consent. It states, quote, "The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. Any use of force or coercion to inspire a medical decision is considered unethical." Americans today are reawakening to the critical importance of the Nuremberg Code. Currently, over 75% of Americans who are eligible are refusing to take the latest COVID booster. For some, this would be their ninth shot. They've done their research, they've decided that they've had enough. That's called informed consent. Pfizer and Moderna are currently lobbying our government to mandate every shot, just like the first one. If this passes, you can be assured that we will be lined up like cattle and mandated to take every shot, just like we were the first time. American children are required to take 72 vaccines just to stay in school. Should that be the fate of adults too? That will never happen when I'm president. So to sum it all up, despite what you may have heard, I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccine who wants a vaccine. I'm just going to make them safer for everyone. I'm going to make sure that the industry is responsible for their products. And I'm going to make sure that you are always free to choose what's right for you. If you agree with me, then go to Kennedy24.com to see what other changes I'm going to make when I'm the president.